And then suddenly he's had several affairs. On a wild trip, he's now doing drugs. He's indulging in that dark side. Starved his dark wolf for so long, it then came back with a vengeance, and now it's just pure gluttony.
Women would accept the cheating part if they didn't have to deal with other women shaming them.
And if we indulge in that too much, it would be a net negative on us and the people around us.
Hello and welcome to the Black Swan Life podcast. And you'd never guess who I have today. The girl's favorite. Yes. And I've got to say, he's not available at the moment, but you can put yourselves on the waiting list just in case it becomes readily available.
Absolute charmer.
So I have Kit, who is my friend, my person, and I'm going to read his intro because it's really good. Kit is nicknamed London's Hitch. I actually believe that. You're going to learn a lot today. He's an award-winning actor. So I'm waiting for my red carpet situation to show up, and dating coach. He's amassed more than 25 million views online, giving dating advice, and a podcast featuring special guests talking about how to attract the kind of partner you want. Welcome, Kit.
What an intro. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. You're my fave. I had to have you. I was like, I'm having Kit. I told everyone.
I think the episode that you came on literally came out this week on my channel.
Right?
So
I know.
The stars have just aligned.
They have aligned. It was meant to be. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited. And everybody go and watch that episode because it's really good. Isn't it, Coach Yvonne? It's good, huh? Yeah, Coach Yvonne is in the room. She's just hiding in the background. Right, Kit, I'm going to go right into it because you've got such amazing things that I want to learn from you.
Okay.
So I was watching one of your reels and you're talking about, and I think we discussed this. Maybe we didn't. I'm not sure. Because we discussed a lot of things. I would love for you to tell us about the difference between caliber and quality. I love that. Could you just explain the differences and why you even came up with it and how that helps?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because we hear a lot of people, and especially when I work with, saying about having standards for men, etc., having these kind of standards, but yet they still don't seem to be getting the relationships and commitment that they want. And then on the other side of the aisle, you have men saying, oh, you know, your standards are too high and they're too unrealistic, etc., etc. That's why you're not getting the right treatment. And the reason I came up with the caliber versus quality is because I think we really have to differentiate between the standard of someone as in the market in regards to very objectively, and then the subjective quality of value that they provide to our lives. So the caliber of a man would be his position, his status, his financial capabilities, his confidence, his intelligence. But the quality of a man, it refers to his intention with you, refers to how he shows up for you, refers to his level of emotional investment in you. Does he make you feel emotionally secure and safe for you to blossom as the woman that you want to be within a relationship? And so you can have men who are very high caliber, these very successful, tall, attractive, you know, six pack, six figures, you know, they live the abundance lifestyle, but they can be very low quality because they don't treat the woman they're with the level of respect that she deserves, or they don't give her the level of investment that she's looking for and aren't as considerate. Equally, you can have a man who's maybe, you know, medium to low caliber, so he has a very standard job, you know, works a standard 9 to 5, which is perfectly fine, but he might be a very high quality guy. So he might be very integral, have very strong principles, has very strong sense of loyalty to his friendships, to his woman, to his family. And so one thing, I think it's funny because you have one side of the aisle, men saying that women have raised their standards unrealistically. And then on the other side, you have women who aren't being treated that great by men saying that, why are we accepting these low standards? And so this is why I came up with, they're both talking about the same they're both talking about standards, but in different ways.
Right.
And that's what the caliber versus quality is. And so men are saying the caliber of what women want today has gone so high, but women are saying the standards of what they're accepting so low. And it is very true. I think the wave is women's standards for the caliber of men has come up here, but when they meet that men, the standard for the quality has gone down here because maybe it's so hard to find this caliber. So that's what I would say.
I love that. I can talk about that for days. I love it because I tell you what, when I started in this business officially, because I've been doing it all my life as far as I'm concerned, like most people, I probably, like yourself, I just wasn't getting paid for it. But when I started, probably about 10 years ago, when I heard the term high value man, it was actually in reference to what you would describe as high quality man. That was all.
Yes.
The caliber bit, where a high value man became high caliber, which is what's understood, I think, on the internet these days, that the high caliber man is the high value man. And so I think we have a kind of thing going on the internet right now with old schoolers like myself, really referring to that quality guy, the guy who treats you well, I realized when I heard you say that, I thought, we really are talking at cross purposes, but I love how you kind of almost bring the conversation to simple things. Now tell me something. Are women asking too much, as far as you're concerned in general, when it comes to wanting both the caliber and the quality? Is that asking too much? You're free to say whatever you like.
Oh, yeah. I'll always be honest. You know me. I'll always be honest and direct. It is only asking... It's not asking too much if you are bringing what those men want. It's one thing to say, I want to be the prime minister. But if you're not out there hanging out flyers, if you're not knocking on doors, if you're not making those politician connections to put you in that position, if you're not putting in the work to be the desired candidate that the country wants for a prime minister, then you're asking too much for the level of your output currently.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And so I do think there is an aspect of, there is some unrealistic expectation with a lot of women today, because some women still ask for the traditional benefits that men have traditionally historically given, but women have elevated themselves today.
Right.
So on one hand, we obviously have equality, which we absolutely should. And it's the first time in history that women are actually out earning their male counterparts, women under the age of 30.
True.
So women are starting to outpace men in terms of earning potential, but they still want the man to pay. They still want the man to provide.
Yes.
They still want the man to take on the majority of the financial burden,
Yes.
especially if she's looking to
Yes.
have a long-term relationship.
Yes.
And so there's this interesting dichotomy of women elevating themselves, but then still wanting to look for a man who supersedes them in those metrics.
Right.
And so it's just asking the question. A lot more women have started to take the positions of being the breadwinner, in terms of being in a position where they have wealth and influence, but they don't want to take the responsibility that comes with that. They still want the man to take the responsibility. And so that's why it can be very difficult for women who are very successful to find a man who not only she sees as eligible for herself, but then wants to commit to her. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So what would you advise a successful woman? We kind of had this on your channel, but
yes.
I'm going to give you a scenario, perhaps. I'm a doctor and I earn well. I am 29. What I desire is, I became a doctor because I was really good at it. I was good at school. The sciences were my thing. I had the aptitude. Didn't know what else I wanted to be, but medicine seemed good. And guess what? I went to medical school, graduated, became a doctor. I don't identify as a doctor.
Yes.
It's what I do. My heart's desire is to be a mom. I want to have kids. Okay. I want to have maybe 3 or 4, and I want to be able to stay home and be taken care of by the man that I'm with. I'm still a doctor, I still out earn him, but this is the situation. That's quite a traditional desire, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Perhaps I'm dating men who maybe he's a physiotherapist, but he doesn't earn as much as I do. His attitude is, look, you earn more, you do more. My fear is, but what about when I have babies?
Very good point.
Right? If you can't, I don't want to be the woman who has to leave my baby at home at 6 weeks or 6 months.
Yes.
To go and slog and never see my baby. I want to stay home with my baby. So where do we go from here?
100%.
Do you think?
100%.
Kit?
For a woman in that scenario, I would say that if you're looking at a man to potentially provide for you, where you're willing to step back from work, look at his lifestyle and ask yourself, can I be okay with that lifestyle? Because a lot of the time, if you earn more, you likely live a slightly higher level of luxurious lifestyle that he does. That doesn't mean his lifestyle is necessarily bad. It just not may be at your standard. But if you want to take that position where you're going to step away from work and you want a guy to take care of the frame of the relationship, then you have to ask yourself, will I be satisfied? Can I accept the lifestyle that he can provide? If the answer is no, then I would say a woman in that position who's 29 and she's looking to take a step back from work to have a family, I would suggest looking much older.
Yeah.
Because men who are much older, men who are in their mid to late 30s, even early 40s, you're a young fine thing to them, right? So you're going to be able to attract them. They're more likely to be further on in their career. They're more, especially if they're older, they're probably a little bit more traditional than guys of your similar age and generation. So they're probably more happy and even expect to take that position, that traditional position.
Right.
But then if you're going to attract that kind of man, you then need to start putting in the work. So what does that kind of man look for? Working on mind, working on body and fitness, working on presentation, working on bringing that level of femininity. Because if you're asking for a traditional man is quite masculine. So you need to be bringing that feminine, because that's what's going to attract him.
Absolutely.
And if you know that's what you want, and if you're a doctor, which can be quite a demanding job in terms of hours, maybe you start peeling back those hours so you can start investing in areas of yourself to attract that man. So areas in yourself, reconnecting with yourself, maybe going to someone like Chengi, where you could step more into your femininity. Maybe you get a personal trainer, so you work to get into the best shape of your life, so that you can, which doesn't only work your body but also works your mind. You start to have a slightly different shift of mindset in regards to that, and because you're doing this work, you'll naturally start to attract that kind of man.
Right.
So that's what I would say to that.
I love that. I agree. I think it's to do with what you're prepared to compromise. And I'm really curious, however, and this is going to be easy for you to answer. I'm a 35-year-old man dating this woman. Okay.
That you're a 35-year-old man dating this.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So 35-year-old man.
Yep.
Dating the woman I've just described.
Yes.
And I'm in love with her, but we have this sticking point. I don't want to lose her, but we have this sticking point because I feel like you earn more, you should do more, right? And we've had the conversations, I know exactly what you want, but I'm not kind of ready to let this go. Now, the woman has to decide, okay, I'm prepared to live the lifestyle that you already live right now, which I absolutely agree with. And I tell my clients that all the time. If you want a man who earns less and you want him to be a provider, you got to be okay with his apartment. Okay.
That's it.
That's what's up, right?
That's
You've got to be
it.
okay with his car, his lifestyle, because that's what he can provide for, right? In this instance, what would you say to this man? Because he's may potentially lose this woman if he doesn't move, but he loves her. So what advice would you give to a guy in that he was your client, he came to you? What advice would you give him?
Yeah. So just to round off, 35-year-old guy dating a woman who's younger than him but earns more than him. Yes. And does he want to step into that traditional role?
He wants her.
He wants her. Okay.
And he's losing her because he's not comfortable with one piece.
Okay. So I would say to him, if you want to keep her, ask her what is it that she needs from the man in her life. And different people have different needs. And if she says, and I'm assuming you're with her because she's a beautiful human being, she's reasonable, she cares about you, so it's unlikely she's going to give you an outlandish answer. So you ask her what she needs from the man in her life that she wants to be with, and see if you do fulfill those needs or if you can. If there is a need of hers that you think you can't, ask her if she's flexible, because you express to her, look, I want to be there for you, I want to take care of you, I want to go through this journey of life with you. I understand this is a need and this is something that's a little bit out of my zone, but are you willing to work with me here? Because if you're going to have a long-term partnership, right, there's going to be compromise and work on both ends. Depending on what that need is, I believe if she really loves you and think there's potential, she'll be flexible. Now, if she's adamant, like, no, this is a need, etc., if you can't do this, then, that's this, then I would say, okay, then that's just not the woman for you, because you can't choose someone who doesn't want to choose you. It's all good you saying, I want to be there for you, but unless the person is reciprocating that, that's not a dynamic that you can survive in. That's not a dynamic that's even healthy for you.
Absolutely.
I
think there's definitely an incompatibility there in that setup and I think this is quite hard because when emotions get involved, it then becomes blurry, but it's not actually blurry. It's really about incompatibility and I think people feel like if we have like 80% in common and we have this 20% that's missing, surely we can make it work. And what people don't really understand is what is the 20%? It's
what that 20% is.
What is that, right?
Yeah.
So if she wants 4 kids to live in a mansion, and that's just the 20%. The rest of the time, she adores you, she's feminine, she's sweet, she makes you feel like amazing. But this is one piece. And that one piece you feel you can't do. Or you can't do right away. That's a big piece.
Yeah, that's a big piece.
Because in marriage, relationships, that 20% becomes the 80.
Very,
sadly.
Very true. Yeah, it's true.
Right?
It's true.
So yeah, it's so just to kind of finish off this particular topic.
Yes.
What do you suggest? Should women choose one or the other, high caliber or high quality? Or what is the reasonable, in your estimation, what is the reasonable position for a woman to take? What should we really be looking for? What should the average woman who's looking for love be looking for? Should they be looking for that high quality guy and that's enough? Or is it okay to be like, I'm all about that caliber? What would you recommend to the average client, woman?
I would say if you had to choose one, so long as he's not a man who's living on the street, obviously, and he has a job.
Yeah.
Right? So he takes care of himself. He's just not on a high level. If you're looking for a life partner, I would say high quality every time. If you can get high quality with caliber, you struck gold, girl. Hold on to him, right? Because I hear all the time about how it's slim pickings out here for women, right? But because we always acclimatize to our environment. Remember the first time you bought a new car? You're like, I'll drive everywhere in this new car.
Yeah.
I'll just go, you need some bread? Let me go get some bread just so I can drive my new whip. After a year, it's not that you don't love your car anymore, but you're used to it.
That's right.
So the whole thing of this caliber of this lifestyle, you will adapt and acclimatize to the lifestyle. Once you've acclimatized and you're not, all shiny-eyed by the novelty of it, you're left with the quality of the person. And that is what defines whether the relationship is going to work. And let's just be real. Hard times can come. Someone can be on top today and then down below later. But the quality of that person is the one thing that will be consistent. And if you're real serious about a life partner, you should spend more time prioritizing the quality of the man over the caliber. I'm not saying we can't desire caliber. There's quality and caliber with women as well, right? You have women who are very high caliber in terms of attractiveness, etc., and desirability, but she's not a great person.
Right.
So if you're looking for a life partner, I would say prioritize high quality. But if you're young and just looking to have fun, hey, listen, you indulge in all the high caliber you want, my girl.
Just understand what's what. I agree.
Yeah.
And I agree 100%. I really truly believe that quality can create caliber.
Amen.
I feel like if you got a great guy who has values, morals, integrities, hardworking, he knows who he is, and you come together, you can be a force to be reckoned with.
100%.
Absolutely.
The example we talked about when you were on my show was Martin Luther King and his wife. Now, technically, on paper, she was actually earning more than him because she was working in the market. But he was on a very high purpose, very high mission.
Yes.
No one would dare say he's not a high quality man, even though in the eyes of society on paper, he would actually have been considered a low caliber man. And she would have followed him to the ends of the earth. I mean, she did.
Amen. So I'm for it. I'm about that. I actually believe that is the Black Swan life. I actually believe that it takes a certain quality of woman to be able to even think that way in the first place.
Yes.
So love that, but I could keep you there forever, but I've got a few more questions. We cannot let the London's Hitch leave this place. Actually, when I met Kid, I thought, he's the Black Matthew Hussey.
I get that a lot.
Do you?
I know, yeah. They're like, you're like the Black Matthew Hussey. I'm like, whatever.
I mean, I've got so many compliments, but you have no idea. Okay, so now we've spoken about money. Let's talk about sex.
Let's dance, baby.
Okay. Okay, so let's clear this out. Let's clear this out for a little bit. I'm really interested in your perspective on this. Now, how long? Now, there's this whole kind of thing of the longer he waits, the more likely you're going to get commitment. The longer he waits for that good loving, the more likely he's going to get commitment. True or false, Kit?
There is a correlation, but it is not a causation.
Oh, see, I told you smart.
So there is a correlation between how quickly you share yourself with him to his level of respect for you that he would consider you for commitment.
Right.
But just because you make him wait does not mean he will commit to you, no.
Okay, that's just too clever. You slow this down. Talk about the correlation. What goes on in a man's mind? Okay, so how long would a woman have to wait in general to correlate the sense of value? Because is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Or virtue?
Virtue. So one of the first things that a man is looking for, and I give them a perspective, I'm just going to say how it is.
Of course.
Men want to choose a woman, at least to him, is sexually selective. That is an attractive quality in a partner.
Right.
Because to men, sex and intimacy is the prize with a woman. And he wants to have a prize that ideally no one else has had or no one else can get easily, right? The more valuable the prize is, the harder it is to get. So that's why there's a correlation. But in terms of when is the right time to sleep with a man,
right?
I know people like to say this 3-date rule, 3-week rule, 3-month rule. The reason I don't think that's helpful is because if you say, for example, the 3-date rule, you can have 3 dates that, let's say, last 2 hours each. That's 6 hours. But then you can have a first date where you end up spending the whole day together. That's 6 hours as well. You spent the same amount of time.
Interesting.
In just a different way. So what I often say to women I work with is, ask yourself, would I introduce this man to my friends?
Right.
Would I bring him as a +1? So if your girlfriends were having a party that weekend, would you bring him as your +1? Because anytime we bring someone as our +1 to an event or to a party with other people that we know, they are an ambassador for us.
Right. Love
right?
that.
They represent us to everybody. Because if you have a party this weekend, Chengi, and you bring, one of your friends, right? And then that friend is being drunk, obnoxious, trashing the place. Everyone's like, whose friend is that?
Right.
Oh, that's Chengi's friend. That reflects bad on you. And so we wouldn't bring anyone naturally to an event with us where they're going to represent us until we know that this is a good person to be our ambassador.
Right.
Which means we would have had to have gotten to know them to a certain degree that we have a level of trust for them to handle our reputation, right? If you don't know this man well enough, whether he would be a good ambassador for you around your friends, it's too soon to sleep with him. And that could be because you may have one date, because sometimes people have relationships or they meet men or women in a different country. So you might be talking for 2 hours on Skype a day, but you've only had one technical date in 2 months. And maybe that was like a weekend in Paris, or maybe, he flew over for a couple of nights or something. But there's a level of rapport and trust that's already being built, an emotional connection that's being built. So that's why I say, ask yourself the question, would I introduce this man to my friends? Is he a good ambassador for me? And if the answer is yes, I think I know him well enough and trust him well enough that he would handle my reputation well, do your thing.
Okay, thank you. Now, that's from the perspective of the woman. So this is great advice for us girls.
Yes.
And for those of you who are waiting till marriage, we're not talking to you. We're talking about everybody else. Don't be putting in the comments, but what if you're waiting? We're not talking about you because you're waiting, baby. Okay, just wait till he puts that ring on your finger, if that's your thing, okay? So for every other girl, that's fine. So I've made that assessment. How do I know it's fine for me? So for instance, we spend the whole day together and I've made that assessment and I think, I've learned so much about you and I feel good. And it's nighttime. We've been talking since morning. We met for a coffee date in the morning and now we've had lunch and dinner and it's been 8 hours. I don't know how many hours we've been together.
Yes.
And it's nighttime and you walk me to my house and I'm thinking, I think I know you. I feel like I could introduce you to my friends, my family, my world. How is he going to think that was too soon? That was just a day, girl.
Is this the first date?
Yeah, it's our first date, but we've done the hours. So I might make an assessment and think, okay, I think I can answer that question. I've spent enough time with this man. We've had this amazing magical moment where everybody's been vulnerable. I mean, it could be a liar, but that's a really good liar for a whole day. Yeah,
very true.
And he can, pathological lie can keep it up for 9 months. So, assuming he's a general kind of guy. Now, my concern, what I'm kind of thinking about here is I might have made that assessment of you and your character, but what if you ghost me the next day because you thought that was too soon? So from a man's mind, would he think she's cheap? I've made a different assessment, but what is the guy thinking?
Yeah. If they've spent the whole day together and he is connecting with her emotionally, and I think generally women are more emotionally adept than men, so they can tell genuinely better whether there's a genuine emotional connection or whether a guy is just in it for the fun. Would he think that's too quick? I would say if the first date is the first time you're meeting, then yes, he would. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Because you can have an emotional connection,
right?
And the emotional connection can be there,
yeah.
But he still wants to know that you're sexually selective.
Right. So expand this for me a little bit more, because I know you gave me a really good starting point.
Yes.
I believe the kind of, would this person be worthy of my world? But now we're talking about the nitty gritty. It's the first date. I've decided you're good for my world. Maybe because I'm delusional. I just want you to be good for my world.
Sure.
Or maybe you genuinely are. But you're now telling me, well, he would still think that's too soon. So how many dates really? I mean, I know it's not dates.
Sure.
But you know what I mean? Like,
I get
at
you.
what point is it too soon?
Okay.
And at what point can we play with it? You know? Do you know what I'm saying? At what point can it be a bit more subjective?
I get that. One thing I say to women I work with is use what I call sexual progression. So if level 10 is foregoing, that's sex, everything, start from level 1. So still maintain that emotional connection, but level 1, maybe the first date you share a kiss. Maybe the second date it's kiss, bit more passionate with hands, etc. Maybe the third date, maybe it's he cooks you dinner and stuff. If you stay over, maybe you do stuff, but you don't go all the way. Sexual progression is really good in terms of getting a man to continue to reinvest, because if we think of it like a video game, if I'm playing Super Mario and I want to get to level 10 and I'm getting through level 1, level 2, level 3, I'm not stopping now.
Right.
I'm going to continue because I can see the progression that I'm getting to where I want to go.
Right.
I think the danger, what can happen is if you have sex on the first date and I bought the game today and I beat level 10, it's like, oh, that was an easy game. I may have had a really good time, but that was an easy game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Like, did I get, quote unquote, my money's worth? I spent £50 on a game that I completed in the first 10 hours that I played it. But if there's a level of progression, and the thing is, during that progression, you're going to see his investment in you go up because he's getting excited at the progression.
Right.
And then what will happen is, once you've done it that way and all the time that he's been investing, whether he realizes or not, he's been building this emotional intimacy and connection with you. So by the time that you do have sex and he has the quote unquote post-nut clarity, and if you don't know what that is, we can talk about that.
Please tell everyone. I know what it is, but I know the girls want to know. Let's hear it from the kit.
So post-nut clarity is when a guy essentially, I call them lust goggles. So when you have like beer goggles on, right? You have beer goggles on one night and, maybe you sleep with someone that night. You wake up the following morning when you're sober, the beer goggles come off and you go, oh, wow, I probably wouldn't have gone home with you if I didn't have these beer goggles on. Before a guy has sex with a woman, he has lust goggles.
Right.
And this is something guys need to get better at telling about themselves, but a lot of the time he can have a level of investment because he thinks he likes her, but actually he's just really attracted to her. Once a man has sex with her, the lust goggles come off and he then realizes, do I like her or was I just attracted to her? So when you've had that progression and the lust goggles come off and he has that subconscious internal dialogue, do I like her or was I just attracted to her? He'll be like, wow, no, I really like her because you've done this work, right? So this is why, and I think the other danger, the other extreme is when a woman's like, we're not going to do anything for like 2-3 months.
I was going to ask you that as well.
We're not going to do anything for 2-3 months.
Yes, dry.
Right.
No progression.
And I understand the sentiment behind it, but that means he's going to be stuck at level 1. If I get a new Mario game and I'm stuck at level 1 for a week, I'm going to stop playing. Like either I'm not good enough to get through the levels or the game's too hard. Like this game was just not made for me, right? I don't have the things that the game needs to progress.
Yeah.
So, and because because women show their investment through their sexual intimacy and men show their investment through their emotional intimacy.
Right.
If a woman's not showing that side of the investment, a guy might just think, okay, cool, she's actually not into me. Which I'll be honest, I've stopped seeing women before because there was no level of progression. And I was like, okay, cool. You're not as attracted to me as it needs to be for this to work, which is okay, but I'm not going to continue to indulge in this anymore.
Absolutely.
So that's what I would say.
I love that. You just gave me two things. Investment going up. I think that women sometimes don't know what's too much, and I think it goes both ways. I think we're all trying to read each other from like a whole different place. But I think what women can really take away from, that little bit of what you said, which is really, really powerful, is when you give that sexual progression, it should be matched with emotional investment.
100%.
Right? Because I think that's the only way you can tell this is a safe space for me to continue to give a little bit of myself. And I say to my clients and to my followers, many of which are very, some of which have waiting for marriage, right? I say to them, even though that is the case, he still wants to know that you're sexually attracted to him. He really needs to know that.
Yes.
He needs to know that the only reason you are not jumping into bed with him is not because you don't find him attractive, but because it's for your own reasons, your own virtues, your own religious beliefs, or whatever.
Yes.
And I find a lot of men, a lot of my clients who meet these men, they're quite happy to wait till marriage, but they need to feel your desire for them.
Yes.
And that's where that sexual progression comes.
Yes.
But then, some people then don't know how to manage themselves in, in that situation. However, I think that's really powerful. But, as you're sexually progressing, you also have to observe, is there more investment? Because sometimes you sexually progress and the investment goes downhill because it's like, if it didn't come to stay anyway, you're going to see an investment issue, aren't you?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other point is just left my head, but we're going to move on because it's time to move on. And if it comes back, I'll remember it.
Yeah, 100%.
Now, you and I were having lunch and you started telling me about a concept that we weren't able to explore much further. But I think I saw you do a video on your channel and I was like, let's talk about this a little bit more. Talk to me about the dark wolf. And is it the light wolf or the white wolf?
The light wolf and the dark wolf.
Yes,
very much so.
Tell me about those two guys. Tell me about that concept. Let's talk about it.
So we're all made with balance in the world. Yin, yang, sun, moon, masculine, feminine. And in us, we all have what I call a light wolf and a dark wolf. And we can feed either of those beasts in us, if you will. When we feed the light wolf, whatever feeds the light wolf, that is a behavior that if we indulge in that, that is a net positive on us, the people around us, and our community. So that can be things like helping out at a charity. That could be things like making sure your friend is taken care of. That could be things like hosting for someone who's maybe trying to study here and is struggling, right? Then there's feeding the dark wolf. And the dark wolf, the things that feed the dark wolf are the things that we do for our own selfish desires. And if we indulge in that too much, it would be a net negative on us and the people around us. And so when we were talking at lunch, I was talking about men and their dark wolf, and I've been thinking a lot about the women's side, and maybe you can touch on this. But I've noticed that the dark wolf for men stereotypically tends to be one of these four things. It tends to be alcohol, it tends to be gambling, it tends to be fighting, it tends to be women, or drugs. Right? Those are things that fulfill his own selfish desires, that if he indulges in those things too much, it will be a net negative for him and the people around him. And with that, when it comes to a relationship and a marriage, I think part of the reason why some marriages fail is because a man promises never to feed his dark wolf again if he used to, right? And the dark wolf doesn't die because the dark wolf is a part of you.
Yes.
The dark wolf only dies when you move on,
right?
When the body moves on and the spirit moves on. And so what happens is you can try and starve that dark wolf, but eventually it will come back with a vengeance. And so that's why you have these men who have been straight and narrow for 10, 15, 20 years, good woman, good kids and everything. And then suddenly he's had several affairs. Suddenly he sold his home. He's bought that sports car he's always wanted. Suddenly he sold everything. Now he's just gone on a wild trip. He's now doing drugs. He's indulging in that dark side. That's because he starved his dark wolf for so long. It then came back with a vengeance, and now it's just pure gluttony. And so I think part of having a healthy relationship for a man, and this is why I'll ask this, and I asked my girlfriend this, what do you think dark wolf is for women, is how can he keep the dark wolf on a diet while in the relationship? And that's what it's about. It's about, you still have to feed the dark wolf a little bit to keep it at bay, but how can you feed it in a way that keeps it on a diet that doesn't disrupt what you have? Because this is why, sometimes a lot of time, wives would be like, oh, why is he always, going to the pub, drinking with his friends? That's him feeding his dark wolf. Why is it when he goes out, he's always like prone to getting into fights? It's feeding his dark wolf. Right. Why is it when he gets some money, the first thing he does is go to the casino? That's feeding his dark wolf. Why is it anytime he's single, or no, just single, he just can't help himself with indulging in lustful actions and behaviors with other women? That's feeding the dark wolf. So I think especially this is the work I think we all have to do, and this is the work that I think especially men we have to do, because I think it's an unrealistic promise to be like, I'm never going to feed this dark wolf. I'm going to starve this side of me. And it only comes back to literally bite them in the relationship.
Right.
So it's about how do you keep that dark wolf on a diet that keeps it at bay, but you can still maintain your relationship.
Love it. Now, another question. I love firing them at you. Dark wolf. So how do you feel a woman can support her man's dark wolf so it doesn't go out of hand? Okay, so we I believe have made it clear that it's a man's responsibility and a woman's responsibility to deal with your dark wolf.
Very true.
Right? Like, it's my primary responsibility. But how can I as a woman help my man now that I acknowledge this? Because it's quite a big deal. I think, the idea of the dark masculine, the dark feminine is something that, because I've been in the sort of femininity kind of space for a very, very long time. And there's always this part that was like, but it doesn't quite fit. It's not all there is, right? Yes. And then I obviously then realized that there is such a thing as a dark feminine, which is fantastic. But again, like all things dark, it can get dark.
Yes, right? Yeah, 100%.
That's where the mean girl comes out, and that's where the witch comes out.
Yes.
And all that kind of gold digging kind of energy, that kind of, which a lot of people are meeting a lot of people's darkness and thinking, oh, that's women. No, that's kind of that untethered darkness,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So if I take control of that version of me, because it's useful, it has its place.
Useful, yeah. There's a reason we have it.
Yeah. But I might need help from my partner. Mm-hmm. So you're a guy, you spoke to your girlfriend. I'm sure you've had conversations. As you help yourself, how else can she support you? How do you think a woman can support a man? Maybe give him a bit more leeway or help him out, participate?
Sure, yeah,
What do you recommend?
I hear that. If she asks him, when a woman asks this question, she has to ask it from a place of wanting to understand and reserve judgment later.
Note that, ladies. Say that again, please, Kit.
You need to ask from a place of wanting to understand and reserve judgment later.
Thank you.
She needs to ask him, what do you need? What's going to help you feel fulfilled in this relationship? And if he's like, okay, and if he's being open, transparent, which it can be very difficult for men to do because a lot of the time men feel responsible for a woman's emotions in a relationship. And so when she's upset, he thinks it's my fault. And so it's like, should I be honest and tell her at the risk of upsetting her, or should I not say anything at all and keep the peace? And a lot of guys choose that avenue, which I don't think is always right, because sometimes the friction is actually what can create understanding, or an avenue to build understanding. So she asked him, what do you need to feel fulfilled in life? Or how can I support you to feel fulfilled? So if one of his dark wolf is, let's say it's fighting, he might be like, okay, well, I've taken up my time, right? I enjoy it. I may come home bruised and battered, so maybe the compromise is maybe I'll do it 3 times a month. Right. And when I come home, I need you to not complain about whether I have a black eye, a bloody nose. I want you to just ask if I'm okay, if I need anything. And that's it.
Okay.
And she may not even understand. She might, why does he need to fight? Like, why is this in him? Because a lot of the time it's easy to go, yeah, but why do you need to do that? Like, is there something wrong with you? Was it a trauma response or whatever? It might just be him. That's what his dark wolf food is.
Right.
And so there is a responsibility on him to be like, how can I do this that doesn't impact my relationship? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But also on her to try and provide some space for him to do that. Right. And that's where the compromise comes. Yeah. I mean, the other classic dark wolf, and this happens more often than women realize, especially in the upper echelons of society. But let's say with lust and with women, the other feeling dark wolf might be like, okay, he might say, we have a relationship, I'm committed to you, we have a serious investment, etc. You're my person. But every now and again, I may have a physical thing elsewhere. And for some women, they can accept that. Some can't. The higher you go in society, the more women accept that than people realize. Because it's like, I have the name, I'm on his arm on the red carpet, I have the house, I have the kids, a random girl one night that he has a physical thing with that doesn't mean anything. And it can be very difficult for women to understand this. I understand. It's very difficult, especially because I think a lot of the time sex for women, not always, because you have those lustful times, but there can be a level of emotional intimacy. So it can be very difficult for women to understand, how can a guy just have sex and it doesn't mean anything? How can he be so detached? I don't know why. You're going to have to talk to the creator, because that's how he made us.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you don't have to understand why, but if you understand that's a need, and is there a way you can facilitate the space? It might be like, okay, if you do it, maybe it might be something some couples take the approach is like, okay, you can have another girl, but I want to be involved. That's one way. Some are like, I don't want to know. So it's like a don't ask, don't tell. Don't ask, don't tell.
Right.
Some it might be like, okay, we can only do that, or you can only do that outside of this country. So that it's never anyone who we could cross paths with. So it's only if we're on holiday or something.
Right.
And if you say you're going out, I will not ask questions. If you come back next month, etc. So the best relationships, at least I believe, is understanding those sides of each other instead of trying to promise to be something that we just inherently aren't.
I love that.
And I think a woman shares whatever her dark wolf is, and a guy should be able to provide the space for whatever that is.
Absolutely. And I feel that these are important conversations. Really important. I would love to see a world where people can actually have a real conversation about stuff. But that will mean people have to be healed from their trauma. They have to be self-aware, and they have to be self-loving, because if we have that conversation, for instance, a man told me that his dark wolf was to meander elsewhere now and again. I cognitively can understand that. I rationally can understand that, because, I am unusually that way for a girl. I would have a hard time with it. Right? And so instead of wasting both our time, I would have to say, thank you, bye.
Yeah.
And that should be okay.
100%. Yeah.
And I feel that a lot of women, I think if you give yourself permission to walk away from the things that don't sit well, then you give yourself permission to have any type of conversation. I've had conversations with, I remember dating this one guy, and he was very clear that there was a particular sexual act that he wanted, that he made very clear that if he doesn't have it, he's going to cheat. Like, he was very clear, and I adored him. I have the highest respect for men that tell me the truth.
Yeah, 100%.
I swear it's the best quality for me in a man. Is very sexy, it's wonderful.
Yes.
But I just wasn't prepared to play, and it was okay. It really was okay. And I feel like, we should have more of those sort of situations. I mean, there are things that I will totally entertain that other women won't.
Yeah. And like you said, it's about seeing if you can.
Yeah. And I feel like we should actually have a whole episode just on this topic, because we were talking about that before you came. That was a lady who's been asked to be in a polygamous situation. And, that's his dark wolf. He's made it clear. And we're talking about how authentic and how real he was. And she's the one who's not. But I really feel like this is a conversation that we absolutely need to have. And I think we need to make it safe to have it in these sort of situations and have back and forth, because I don't really think anybody should be vilified for who they are in their darkness. Because that is the you, right? And I love this conversation. I wish we had another hour, because I know you and I can talk for like 2-3 hours. But let's have this conversation again. I'm going to pin this, because I remember saying to a bunch of women, I think I was a teaching assistant at the time, and we had all these, women in the staff room, and I happened to say, I said to them, so how many of you would leave your husband, because all of them were married in for a very long time, so it's kind of outside of London, and they tend to keep their marriages forever. And I said, how many of you would leave your marriages if your husband cheated and you found out? So they all said, oh, I for sure would. I would kill him. Everybody did the usual. And I think a lot of women would accept the cheating part if they didn't have to deal with other women shaming them. I really do. I think, like you said, if I get the lifestyle, the love, the support, the children, to be honest, that fulfills most women's cup. But it's how will if my friends ever found, it's the community thing. We can't be having that, because that's low status.
She still has
if your
to
man
have
is
respect.
cheating on you, right, you are low status, and then now you can't hold your head up high, right? So there are all these other kind of situations. But I did say that to these ladies, and at the end, everybody obviously lost their rag, because women get really emotional about this. And I think we get emotional about it because we don't talk about it in healthy setups.
100%. Can I ask you a hypothetical question?
Yes.
Would you rather, let's say you're married to a man.
Yes.
Would you rather that he never cheated, but everyone thinks that he has on you, and all the women think that he has cheated on you, but he hasn't?
Yeah.
Or would you rather that he has cheated, but no one knows.
As long as I'm the one who doesn't know, along with no one else knows.
Yes, of course.
I need to be amongst the no one. Here's the thing. I don't want to say this publicly because I know we'll have different sort of conversations privately. But I will say this, and this is absolutely true for me. What I don't know won't hurt me. Number one. Number two, I am very accepting of human nature.
You are actually, yeah.
I'm very accepting. What I don't want to ever give over to my person, because for me it's a very spiritual connection and sex is spiritual to me. So I don't want an invasion of entities into this spiritual space, because I'm literally made of mainly spirit than boy. I'm very connected to my spirituality, to the point where if you are in my life, I will literally dream every woman you've had. I'll see her face. I'll know what she looks like.
Yo, women know, actually. That's true.
Yeah. And I will literally go to bed and see the women you've been with today. That's how it is with me, with my spirituality.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work, because I will end up in the bedroom with you, with that woman. Do you know what I'm saying?
I
think if you could literally keep it from me, if it were at all possible,
Yeah, I understand.
that God won't tell on you.
Don't tell him,
it's a and a lot of women get that. A woman will feel it in her intuition. Some will feel it, but as long as there's no evidence. But I know women who are like me, not many, who will literally witness it. I've been with, I've had a boyfriend or two, and I literally saw it, the person, the place, the thing, and all the women before me, like literally lined up. So it's very difficult to keep that from me. And then it's very painful, because you wake up from the dream and you've witnessed the whole thing. Whereas a woman that can't see it, she can ignore it. She can put it somewhere in the compartment of, he probably cheats.
Yeah.
But he's never gonna, do you know what I'm trying to say? So this is why for me personally, it's hard I don't think I can watch my man in bed with another man, with another woman. And I think, to be honest, I understand that it's my programming. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I understand that it's my conditioning and it's my scripting.
Sure.
It's not necessarily my nature.
Yeah.
Because if women somewhere all over the world, or women who are actually comfortable doing it, are doing it, it means that it is within us to have the capacity for it. I've just not been, it's not my blueprint.
Yeah.
And I'm too old to change it now.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm not motivated to, per se, because I feel like I'm okay waiting for that person who can play, the same kind of,
at least in that realm.
But I think as a partner of mine, you're gonna get a lot of bandwidth over a lot of things, because I give men a lot of freedom. It's just that in that area we might have a problem. With that being said, a mistake is a mistake. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes, I do.
But a kind of a whole pass for life, that I can't give.
Yeah, no, I hear that. And you have to decide what's right for you. You have to decide what's right for you.
Yeah, and who knows? Life is not this linear thing. I always say never, because I don't know what I will accept 5 years from now, and because there are a lot of things I never thought I'd accept. But my whole thing is, if you can sit with it in your integrity, and you can have peace and not be paranoid and be acting crazy with anything in life, then that's where you are, and that's your authentic place, and you can proceed from there. I envy women who
100%.
can. I really do.
I 100%. I get you.
Okay, so just one more question and we're done.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Just one more question, and that is, Kit, why did the morning text stop? Can you please explain to all the girls why the morning text stops?
Why did the morning text stop?
I had a question from one of my followers, just like, I said, I'm going to ask Kit that because he's the guy.
Yeah.
What's happening? I mean, women are addicted to the morning text.
I didn't know how much you know.
We are like literally hooked to it. It's like a lifeline.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
And probably that's half the question. That's half the answer. I
didn't know it was that important.
Yeah, it is. With women, it's an emotional, I'm thinking about you. It's, you matter. I don't know. It's
sure. Validates her presence in his life and his mind.
And that whole idea
his
that
psyche.
It's in the morning, though.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. Like the morning, the first thing I think about,
is you.
If he's like, the first thing I think about is you, so I text you. Yeah,
you and Clarice and Jane.
Yeah.
But at least I made the morning
but
roster.
You're on the list, though.
Yeah, I'm
Don't
on
worry.
the morning list.
Yeah.
Others get the afternoon, sometimes 2 days, 3 days later list. I'm on the morning list, okay?
That's
So
so
fighting
funny.
chance.
Yeah.
But I think us girls want to know, inquiring minds want to know what is going on in a man's mind. What's actually the deal? Has he lost interest? Is he playing games? What's the dealio?
Sure. It depends on what's happened so far.
Right.
So, for example, if a guy was just looking for fun,
Yeah.
and you started having fun, he's going to not feel he has to invest in as much because he's got you in a position where you are sexually available to him. So it's like, I don't need to invest as much as before because I've got her to that position where she's available to me. So I don't need to text her in the morning. Now, if you're in a relationship or you've gotten into a relationship, if you have, for example, I don't know, let's say you spent a whole weekend together and you've gone home that day and he doesn't text you the following morning, it's not because he doesn't care about you, but sometimes guys just need a little bit of space from the relationship. And not space as in we're going on a break, but it's like we've just spent all this time together and stuff.
Right.
Now I'm back to focusing on stuff in life that I need to do.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so usually it's those two things. It can be a guy, he's gone comfortable in the relationship, so he's not thinking to invest in those areas as much. And sometimes he may not even know that's what's important to you. Like, I didn't know how much it was.
Right.
Or
Typical.
Literally, right? Yeah. Or it's because he was just looking for one thing and he's got you to a position where he can have that. So he doesn't feel he needs to invest more because you're at the level that he wants you at.
Right. Well, thank you for that. I mean, ladies, you've heard it from Kit.
Yeah.
Don't take it to heart. Okay, don't get into your feelings about it. And, if he's decided that he's got you at the level and you want to be at a different level, then you know where to go. You can go to Mr. Kit, come to the Black Swan Relationship Academy, wherever you need to be, but he's going to help you get that man texting you back again. And Kit, can you please tell all the boys, all of them, the big boys, the little boys, the small boys,
yes,
can we keep texting the girl we like, please?
Keep true.
Can you tell them? Please tell them. Beg. Just let them know, like, gentlemen, please. Text her.
It means more to her than we realize.
Yes.
And I've made that mistake.
Yeah.
Where it's like, because I'm notoriously not a great texter. My girlfriend will tell you. But she was like, look, I just feel when we go 2 or 3 days not seeing each other, I just feel I need a bit of that. So I'm like, fine. I'll make that effort because if I know that's how you feel loved, then I'll make that effort. But I'm still notoriously bad. I'll send her voice notes instead.
Oh, don't we love him? Yes, he's taken his said girlfriend a few times, girls. For the waiting list, which you'll have to pay for.
You charmer.
Thank you so much for coming, Kit. Now, where are we going to find you? Because we want to watch more of your exciting videos and get to know you and use your services.
Of course. So you can find me at Stay Slick with Kit, which is on YouTube, on Instagram, and TikTok, and there I've got links if you want some one-to-one. All my content is there, and I've got your Claim Your Man program course, which you can get yourself and claim your man.
Claim your man, girl. Come on now. I love it, and thank you for coming, Kit.
Thanks for having me.
And I think we might have to steal your Make Your Black Swan coach. Do you think he's expensive? I think it's expensive. He likes us. He might give us I'll
give you a discount for sure. Just let me know if you're from the Black Swan Academy. Let me know.
Yeah, we'll have to see if we can steal you.
Actually, I'll tell you what. Claim Your Man 2.0 is coming out in the next couple of weeks. So any of your Black Swans, if they want it, I'll give it to them complimentary for the first month.
What?
For sure.
Complimentary. Okay, we love Kit, and you'll be back for sure. You're definitely going to be getting used to being on that seat because we want to hear from you. Because I told you it's brilliant, isn't he? So ladies, you can't date him, but you can definitely use his services, and you can definitely watch him, and you can definitely figure out everything you need to know from Kit. He's brilliant. So more from Kit next time.
Thank you.
And we'll see you later.
Thanks for having me.
Bye for now. Bye.